why a young girl believed she had to shoot her parents. The story Friday.
It's a place called Paradise Valley, and people who live in it say it was a paradise.
Jesus has told me.
Until this woman and her followers arrived.
Cosmic law is cosmic law, and when the karma has to teach people a lesson, then it has to descend.
I believe that there are peak dates when nuclear war could happen anytime in this 12-year period that began on April 23rd.
It's a Montana-based spiritual group of some 3,000 people that has aroused the anger of its neighbors and the concern of half a dozen federal agencies. Who is Elizabeth Prophet, and what does her church, Universal and Triumphant, stand for? We'll talk with her tonight.
This is ABC News Nightline. Reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel.
This, quite frankly, is one of those stories you save for a slow day when not very much else is happening. And even then, you wonder whether it merits the attention. Not that the Church Universal and Triumphant isn't interesting. It is gloriously bizarre and fascinating, but it is also exceedingly strange. As one Montana neighbor put it, I'm surrounded by people whose dipsticks haven't seen oil in a long time. That observation, even less obliquely put, has been made in particular about the church's current leader, Elizabeth Clare Prophet. The organization itself sometimes seems less a church than a cult, but it has several thousand members, and as Nightline correspondent Farrah Sawyer reports, their convictions, and their activities are a little difficult to ignore.
Paradise Valley, Montana. God's country, they call it here. Not the kind of place you'd expect to find a New Age range war.
Jesus has told me that the kingdom of God is the consciousness of God.
And this is not the kind of person you'd expect to be leading the battle. Elizabeth Clare Prophet, head of the Church Universal and Triumphant, whose teachings are a grab-bag mix of Western and Eastern philosophy. She believes she is the reincarnated spirit of Queen Guinevere and Marie Antoinette. To her church members, she is the mother of the universe, the very messenger of God.
A messenger is one who does bring the message of the angels, of the ascended masters, and of God to a people who have forgotten their source.
The ascended masters, spirits like Jesus, Buddha, Merlin the magician, and someone called Rayolite, bring Prophet visions of destruction. The Soviet Union, she believes, is planning a first nuclear strike. The four horsemen of the apocalypse are riding across the land.
And as you know, these four horsemen bring problems in the economy. They bring war, they bring death, they bring famine, they bring plague.
Lord Michael, and legions of blue, come seal me now, keep me faithful and true.
An estimated 3,000 church members gave up their old lives to follow Prophet's visions to Paradise Valley, chanting for protection and preparing for nuclear holocaust, dotting the landscape with scores of fortified bomb shelters, room for every man, woman, and child in the church.
These things close and go in against the two openings in there, and there's no way of opening it up from outside.
Fred Morcell gave up a full-time acting career to come here and build this underground shelter for himself and 6 others. When the messenger of God announced this past March and April were the most dangerous times, Morcell prayed and waited.
We were ready to go down any minute. Any minute.
Disaster was averted, members believe, in part because they prayed it away. But church members also take other security measures. Ed Francis, Prophet's 4th husband and the church's business manager, together with her former bodyguard, were recently convicted of illegally buying $100,000 worth of assault weapons and ammunition to be used, Francis said, after a nuclear war against looters or when the Soviets invade.
Let me get this straight. Ed Francis, holed up in a bunker up in the mountains, says he's going to fight the Russians?
Well, you know, who knows what kind of a scenario would unfold.
local residents have grown increasingly alarmed. When church members built a defense tower overlooking Pete Story's ranch, he called it a declaration of war.
Apparently they think that there will be a nuclear war, and afterwards there will be pathetic, starving, radiation-sickened mobs trying to get shelter or raid their bomb shelter or something.
And you're the mob.
And we're the mob.
I don't believe in pacifism. And I believe that if you are attacked in your home and somebody's going to rape your wife and kill you and your children, that you better defend yourself or you're going to have the karma for allowing all those lives to be taken.
Many residents claim the church's frenetic rush to prepare for the end of civilization is also hurting the environment. The main bomb shelter, with room for 750 people and an entranceway big enough for an 18-wheel tractor trailer, is being built in what was once prime habitat for grizzly bears, elk, and pronghorn antelope. When 3 of the shelter's fuel storage tanks burst last month, spilling out 32,000 gallons of diesel oil and gasoline, residents complained bitterly.
Unfortunately, Montana has some very lax zoning and land use laws. You could build a Tower of Babel up there and it would be all right with the state.
One of the reasons the argument over the future of this valley is so bitter is because it lies right next to Yellowstone National Park. Any development here could have a direct impact on one of America's most precious wilderness areas.
The fallout shelters are completely self-contained and are designed to have a minimum footprint on the land once they are completed.
Privately, park officials say they too are frightened by the rapid growth and call it the single greatest risk to Yellowstone. They say the most extraordinary hot springs in the world could be harmed if the church follows through on plans to tap its own springs.
Because it's an intricate plumbing system down there. And all over the world, they've shown that if you mess around with that plumbing system, then you're going to turn these geysers on.
The church denies all the allegations, saying they are the result of media bias, or plots to force them off their land, or religious persecution.
If we were Jewish, this would be called anti-Semitism. If we were Catholic, it would be anti-Catholic mentality. You know, you could put it in any framework that you want.
But they have barred the press from the spill site and from seeing the bomb shelter, saying the Soviets could use the information against them. And they've been slow to tell the community their plans. Residents who turned out to demonstrate their anger say it is that secrecy that scares them the most.
Hey, you guys come down to Livingston, we let you look in our store windows, we let you do anything you want. Why do you hide from us? What are you hiding?
We don't have the obligation to tell the entire world what we're doing exactly and explain to them every move that we make.
For now, Paradise Valley's range war is at a standoff. Both sides angry, both sides worried what the next move will be. Church members say, like it or not, they are staying. They intend to build a new world they say will be here long after this one is destroyed. This is Forrest Sawyer for Nightline in Paradise Valley, Montana.
And joining us live when we come back, the leader of the Church Universal and Triumphant, Elizabeth Clare Prophet, and Jim Robbins, a freelance writer who's been covering the church's activities since 1982.
This is ABC News Nightline, brought to you by Ken Moore.
Whether they've been standing for 100 years or they're brand new.
This is yours.
It's mine.
In over half the homes in America, you'll find Kenmore appliances.
There's something in the fridge.
Dana.
And through Saturday, the largest usable capacity washer on the market and matching dryer are reduced to $399.87 and $329. Only at Sears and Sears Brand Central.
It seemed like a different era. Diners were popular. Rock and roll was in. The air was charged with the power of positive thinking. Style was in style. And Mazda introduced the Miata. No one knew then they were looking at the car that would be named Automobile of the Year. But they were. The Automobile of the Year just seemed to make everyone feel pretty good.
It's a savings spectacular from your Mazda dealer. Now, for less than Toyota's base truck, get a Mazda with a special value pack. 12 extra features from Mazda at no extra charge. Plus, up to $1,000 cash back. And extra value worth up to $1,779. But hurry, savings this spectacular won't last long.
At your Puget Sound Mazda dealer now.
Something big is happening at Levitt's Friday through Monday. 4 big days to save big money. Everything is on sale at 20 to 68% off. Special notice. Levitt's will close all their stores at 6 p.m. Thursday night and work through the night to restock and re-tag their floors for this remarkable furniture event. Something big is happening at Levitt's Friday through Monday night. Don't miss it.
You'll love it at Levitt's.
Barbara Walters with tough questions for the man who runs China today.
What happened to this young man?
Watch a 2020 exclusive Friday.
Elizabeth Clare Prophet has been the head of the Church Universal and Triumphant since the death in 1973 of her second husband, the church's founder, Mark Prophet. She joins us tonight from the church's grounds in Corman Springs, Montana. Jim Robbins, who is with us from our affiliate KTVX in Salt Lake City, Utah, is a freelance writer who's been covering the church and its activities for a number of publications, including the New York Times and the Boston Globe. Ms. Prophet, I'm pleased that you came, and we, of course, invited you, but I must ask you, it surely cannot come as a surprise to you that your activities and the activities of your church are viewed with some skepticism, cynicism by those of us on the outside. Why did you accept? Why did you come?
Because I'm very happy to talk to you about our religion, about our community, and to have this chance to correct some errors that have been stated, such as my followers believing that I'm the mother of the universe. This is absolutely untrue. And regarding the USGS study on our geothermal well, we are abiding by that study. Our well has been capped since we opened it in 1986, and we will do whatever the government says we should do about that geothermal well.
All right, let's see if we can separate some of the political, commercial, and religious aspects of your religion. People who come to be with you, why do they have to stay with you? In other words, you don't, as most religions have, people who come to church, let's say, once a week, or come to synagogue once or twice a week. Your people have to come and live and stay with you. Why is that necessary?
Well, that's not true at all, and neither is there any commercial activity connected with our church. I'm at the international headquarters of Church Universal and Triumphant on the Royal Teton Ranch, and we have a staff of 750 people, including their families. North of here, there is private property called Glastonbury, where people own private land and pursue their private lives and do as they please. The shelters you showed were in Glastonbury. They're privately owned. Incidentally, that war tower that Pete Story is concerned about is a communications tower and a lookout post. It's only 12 feet tall and will be lower when it is backfilled, and it's only 8 feet in diameter on the inside.
What are you looking out for?
What am I looking out for?
Well, what is that?
Well,
whoever sits in the tower, what are they looking out for?
Well, they tell me that if they're going to be in a shelter underground, they need to be able to see what's going on outside and above ground, and so it's radiation proof. And so they have installed it. They've done that on their own, and I've had nothing to do with the building or the selling of shelters in Glastonbury. Now, people come here for prayer vigils, and they came and went during the months of March and April, which I did say were dangerous months. We have prayer vigils here at least 4 or 5 times a year. People come from all over the world, whether for 5 days or 2 weeks. No one has to come and live with me to be a part of my church. Far from that.
You actually said more than just that March and April were going to be dangerous months. You predicted that on the 23rd of April there was going to be, what, some nuclear attack by the Soviet Union?
No, absolutely not. I've never predicted a nuclear attack for April 23rd or for any other day. I'm simply saying there's a probability of nuclear war and confrontation between the superpowers anytime in the next 12 years, and that April 23rd, 1990 marks the final 12 years of the ride of the 4 horsemen that were seen by John the Beloved, recorded in Revelation. That began in 82. That's all I have said about that date.
When you talk of course, it sounds much more dramatic to talk about the ride of the four horsemen of the apocalypse than it does to talk about those things with which the world has been dealing for the past several thousand years since the beginning of recorded history. What is it about these 12 years in particular that's going to be so different about what's preceded it?
The cycles of returning karma, which is what they bring and have been bringing, intensify, and therefore personal and planetary challenges intensify. And I think indeed we are facing the greatest challenges in our nation's history and in the history of these 2,000 years, whether it be the war on drugs, education, AIDS, cancer, the economy, and what is going to happen to nuclear weapons when they get in the hand of madmen, what's going to happen when many more nations have them. I think we're living in a nuclear age, and karma can become physical more quickly than any other time in this 2,000-year period.
Jim Robbins, other than the fact that there's a certain amount of jargon that is thrown around, this doesn't sound much more offensive or much more difficult to deal with than what any number of politicians around the country are spouting. It may be a little more colorful, but what's bothersome about this to the folks in Montana?
Well, I think that a number of things. First off, the people who were there from other parts of the country who were members of the church were very fearful, and we're talking about preparing the bomb shelters very quickly, getting in as fast as possible, and there was a real frenzy of activity. I think what's bothered people for a much longer time, and it really intensified lately, has been the environmental problems that have sprung up. Oil leaking into the earth, and a lot of disruption from bulldozers and bomb shelters and so on. And if anything, people are concerned about what they don't know, what could come about as a result of people being heavily armed, people being heavily fortified, people moving a lot of earth, doing what they think is a lot of damage. And I think that the unknown is as frightening as anything else.
Certainly, and in fact, the unknown is usually more frightening than anything else. But presumably, they had to get certain construction permits to go about doing what they're doing, right?
Well, a lot of environmentalists and people who live in the valley don't think that the permitting process in Montana is anywhere near adequate. They feel that the church cartwheeled through a lot of loopholes in the law, and they went to court over that. And they are still pursuing that. And so I think that people think that the church came in and saw Montana as a rural state, backward in some ways, as far as its protection of its environment goes. And I think that a lot of those things now are planned to be taken up in the next session of the legislature so that similar problems don't come up in the future.
All right, we're going to take a break. We'll continue our discussion with Elizabeth Clare Prophet in just a moment.
Recently, Four Wheel and Off-Road magazine tested the latest imports and domestics to determine this year's 4x4 of the year. The winner was then tested against past 4x4 of the year winners to determine the best of the best. They compared power, performance, and handling. And when it was over, Jeep Cherokee stood on familiar ground.
Get $1,000 cash back or 0% financing on Jeep Cherokee.
You could call one company to take your package to an address across town. And you could find somebody to take your package to any address cross-country. Then you could call a third outfit that could take your package overseas. And yet another that could take your package overnight. But there's only one company you could call if you only wanted to make one call.
When Mount St. Helens erupted on May 18, 1980, it seared the very life out of the land. In the heart of the blast zone, little that was alive and above the ground survived. Weyerhaeuser went to work immediately on its tree farm site, first clearing fallen timber, then planting new trees, more than 18 million of them. Today, some of those trees are more than 25 feet tall. They're green and growing. Wild animals have returned along with the forest. The elk are back, so are the birds. The rivers run clean and clear. The steelhead have returned to spawn. It's all possible when we give nature a helping hand with our most precious renewable resource, trees. Weyerhaeuser, the tree-growing company.
Consistency, it's the key to performance. Sure, you can have a good day or a bad day, but what can you expect on an ongoing basis? Hi, I'm John Biddle for Brooks Biddle Chevrolet in Bothell. This year's new Chevrolet dealer survey is out, and guess what? The most recent Chevrolet survey says the same thing again as the other survey said before. Biddle in Bothell sells Chevys for less every day. So experience for yourself what the people in Bothell have known for years. Biddle in Bothell sells Chevys for less every day.
What happens when you cross a computer with a telephone?
Annual fee is just $40.
Sales pitches at all hours, and some say no privacy. Watch 2020 Friday.
Tomorrow, the conclusion of our Emerald Isle tour. Tip O'Neill reflects on his Irish ancestry.
And a stroll through the gardens of Garnish Island on Good Morning America tomorrow.
And we're back once again with Elizabeth Clare Prophet. I asked you before about the commercial aspects of your church. You said there were none. Where do you get the money, you know, those 18-wheelers, those bulldozers, building the churches? Where does all of that, I mean, building the underground shelters, where does all that money come from?
We have thousands of members around the world, and they provide contributions. I have published over 50 books that are in 12 languages. They're sold all over the world. All of the income from those go to the church.
How much money have you made off those books over the years? I mean, you know, there are very few successful authors in the world, at least very few who make money off it. How much have you made
Well,
off your
the
books?
copyright of my books is in the church's name. I receive a monthly salary, a take-home pay of $1,780.
No, I was asking you how much money came in from the books.
Well, I don't know how much money has come in from the books. It goes into the church. I don't see that money personally.
Talk to me for a moment about this this sort of fortress, not sort of fortress mentality. If anyone's got a fortress mentality, you folks do. Why? Against whom are you arming yourselves?
I would like you to understand that we do not have a fortress mentality. We are peace-loving people. We stand for life. This ground is sacred to us. We are not harming the environment. Our developments are on less than 2% of our 12,500-acre ranch here at the South Ranch. What we simply are saying, it's a nuclear age, it's common sense to have civil defense, and that is why we have fallout shelters. They are not bomb shelters.
There were an awful lot of people back in the 1950s who agreed with you that it was common sense, but for the most part, everyone else has come to the conclusion that it makes nothing but common nonsense to have those bomb shelters.
Well, there's Iraq, there's Libya, and then there's nuclear power reactors, there's accidental launches, and there is the Soviet Union. And as you know, it was said on your program by Zbigniew Brzezinski that he sees three futures for the Soviet Union: going back to a Soviet empire, disintegration, or a Romanian type overtaking. Now, what is going to happen in any of those cases? Who is going to be in possession of the Soviets' military might? Now, that's what I'm concerned about. And J. Edward Rowney said the same thing. He said they could get in the hands of a lunatic, and he said that if you can't believe that there was a Hitler, then you cannot believe that this could happen in this age, and we should be prepared.
Most of us as taxpayers, however, you know, tend to put our faith in the government, and that's why, indeed, we spend hundreds of billions of dollars on defense. Most of us don't try and do it on a retail basis, as you and some of your followers seem to be trying.
Well, do you know where the government's fallout shelter is for you, Ted?
No, as a matter of fact, I don't have a great deal of faith in fallout shelters, quite frankly, and I must tell you, if there were any kind of a direct hit out where you are, I don't think those fallout shelters would do you a great deal of good either.
We have designed them that they will do us good and that we can survive a nuclear war, and we believe that that's our obligation before God, because he's given us a divine spark and the breath of life, and it's just common sense. We had a date we wanted to finish them by. We've been working on them for some time, and that date has come, and we're very grateful that it's over with, because we want to go on living our lives. Jim Robbins actually published that we were going to go underground. We have no desire to use these shelters except in time of a confirmed nuclear strike, and that just makes sense to us, and that's part of our religious conviction.
Jim, is it nothing more than, I mean, who knows if there ever is a nuclear attack, and indeed these shelters do what they're supposed to do, Ms. Prophet and her followers may have the last laugh after all. But other than the nonsensical quality of it, what's wrong with all of this?
Well, there are a lot of people out there who claim that their lives have been ruined by Mrs. Prophet, that they are victims of mind control, that they were made to do things against their will, that they were hypnotized in a sense.
Jim, the Psychological Association of the United States does not accept brainwashing without physical coercion. There is no physical coercion here. The gates are open. You know it. You've been here. You've come. You've interviewed me. You've asked me if I thought I was the Virgin Mary or the head of the Catholic Church. I said, no, I did not believe I was the Virgin Mary or the head of the Roman Catholic Church.
You said you were the vicar of Christ. You said you were the vicar of Christ.
I'm the vicar of Christ of Church Universal and Triumphant. I have nothing to do with the Roman Catholic Church. You went out and printed it anyway, even though you interviewed me and I told you it wasn't true.
You've had a large number of embodiments. Maybe I got confused.
So have you, Jim. You've been embodied many times, and so has everyone else. I believe in reincarnation, and the majority of the people on this planet do believe in reincarnation.
But the point is that you lost a lawsuit. A man claimed that he was assaulted. He was...
Those claims were unfounded. He never proved that he was assaulted.
But he won his case. He won $1.5 million from and the California Supreme Court upheld that claim.
In that
and there are
climate,
a large number of other people who claim that they've been brainwashed, who feel that they've lost 6 or 7 or whatever, how many years of their life.
Accepted.
Well,
it's
there are a large number of people who think otherwise.
Well,
and there are a number of books and experts who also believe that people can be brainwashed. And in North Korea, during the Korean War, pilots were shot down, and they were denounced the United States.
And
there have been studies that pointed out that there have been brainwashing.
In this country.
And folks, I'm afraid we're going to have to put a stop to it. I'm grateful to both of you for joining us. I'm not sure how much we've learned, but it was interesting and nice of you, Ms. Prophet, to join us. Mr. Robbins, thank you very much. I'll be back in a moment.
At the biggest bank in Ireland, from coast to friendly coast, they'll refund your Visa traveler's checks if they're stolen or they're lost. So be off without a care and travel where you will, from McGillicuddy Reeks to Glencolumkill. But if you lose those other traveler's checks, you won't see our smiling faces. If you go to what American Express calls one of their refund places, Visa traveler's checks, they're everywhere you want to be.
There are few places on Earth where you cannot fully appreciate the beauty of the new Honda Accord Coupe. The new Honda Accord. You have to drive it to believe it.
This rare 19th century painting is too fragile for ordinary transportation, so they called United Van Lines. And when Kevin Anderson's family needed someone to move the things they treasured most, they called United Van Lines. United, America's #1 family mover.
Guessing about quality in the brand of paint you buy can be one big mess. So don't guess. Ask someone who really knows what it takes to make great paint. And Ace makes her own. Ace Paint. Don't get mixed up with all the others. Our best interior flat latex is $10.97 a gallon.
What happens when bad things happen to good people who rent? If they have Allstate Renters Insurance, the Good Hands people could replace their things just the way they were. Do you rent? Call an Allstate agent. You'll rest easier knowing you're in good hands with Allstate.
Allstate.
Finally tonight, a correction. On April 25th of this year, on this broadcast, we reported on ethnic tensions in Yugoslavia. 3 scenes totaling 18 seconds of rioting in Chile rather than Yugoslavia were inadvertently included in the report, and we regret the error.